Welcome to the Mindset Hackers podcast, where we will help you level up both personally and professionally. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Now, let's get going. What is up, Mindset Hackers? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I've got an amazing guest who is a personal friend of mine. I've known her for several years now. She absolutely crushes it. Her name is Hana Dhanji. She is a former Wall Street lawyer, an executive coach, corporate trainer, and now she helps coach people on mindset as it relates to making money in the stock market. I'm so pumped to have her on this episode because I think we have a lot in common. We have a lot to talk about. Hana, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. And every time, I was just saying to you right before we started, every time I'm about to go through a breakthrough to the next level of, wealth or achievement or, just success in my life and in my business, you and I always find a point to intersect at. And coming on your podcast has always been such a privilege and an honor. And I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it definitely feels so aligned. What's cool about this version is in the past, I've asked you who is the superhero version of Hana? And you've told me, you've mentioned the show Billions. And I remember watching that a couple times in my past. I don't think I got through more than the first season, but there was a total badass on there. And now you're literally doing what she's doing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so there's a character who I absolutely adore named Wendy Rhodes on the TV show Billions, and she is essentially a mindset guru or a mindset coach for all the traders at a particular hedge fund. Based out of New Jersey, but operating in the New York stock market. And what's interesting is because my background was on Wall Street as well, and I came from that world as a corporate lawyer, I understand what the pressure's like for a lot of high performers, what it's like to have to make money in the markets in choppy waters with high levels of volatility and a lot of situations in which you have to make game time decisions in a high degree of uncertainty. So what Wendy Rhodes does with everybody she works with is she helps them tune in to their ability to move with confidence through moments of uncertainty. She helps them find their inner power, their inner resilience, their ability to focus in on the data that matters and to be able to make money where others can't. So she brings out the best in those she works with, but she does it in such a strategic way using behavioral psychology, positive psychology, NeuroLinguistic programming, all the tools that I use with my clients. So she's an absolute gem.
This is so exciting. You've literally created this and are stepping into the highest version of yourself. And what's cool about this is in the last time you were on my podcast, this was about a year ago, you talked a lot about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Let's do a quick refresher on that for our audience in case they're not familiar with that term. And then let's start diving into some cool stuff around psychology and money mindset and abundance and living your best life.
Beautiful. So neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, is the ability to access either our brain or someone else's by understanding the words that come out of their mouth. Our ability to use language is predicated upon the way that we have organized information in our brains. So if I know that you organize information based on an internal representation system that's visually oriented, the best way that I can communicate with you and influence you is to be able to create a visual depiction or a visual representation of an idea. That's going to map onto the way that you perceive the world much more quickly, much more powerfully, with much more persuasion and influence. Now, if you know that I'm more auditory, which means that I map the world in my brain using sound, you would be better off being able to get on the phone with me rather than write an email. You'd be better off using tonal variations to influence me rather than ideological variations to influence me. So it's very interesting. We each, as human beings, have found an adaptive way to process information that works for us. And it's in one of four ways that we predominantly do it. You've got the visual, the auditory, which means sound. A visual, of course, is sight. Kinesthetic, which is you map the world using touch and feel and emotional feeling and empathy. And then the last one is something called auditory digital, which means you map the world in a way that requires a lot of sequence. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, these are your engineers, your scientists, your mathematicians, people who think in a much more linear manner. So if you can figure out how I think and map the world, you have access to me in a completely different way. than the average person and vice versa. So it's very cool to figure out more about yourself, but more about how to communicate effectively using NLP.
That's
So,
way cool. And
yeah.
what was awesome on the last time you were on is I asked her, like, tell me like what you think I am, and she nailed it. She's like, you're the type that like goes and buys something from IKEA and you don't read the instructions, you just start putting it together. I'm like, that is so me. So love that you got me so nailed down on that. Yeah, so we want to talk about money and how, like, our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs impact how much we actually make. And this is a perfect topic because that's what this podcast is all about, is to, help professionals live an abundant life, a life full of success that not only includes financial abundance, but also has purpose and contribution in this world. And you and I have a pretty broad vision, but you and I were talking right before we hit record about how some people, they attribute success, or they think success is money. And I think, on a conscious level, most of us, at least as we get a little bit more mature, understand that that isn't the entire piece. But a lot of us are on autopilot from our earlier years. We just equate success to money. So therefore we chase money and then we end up unfulfilled. Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Simon. I think that we've all bought into a form of social conditioning where we've believed that in order to achieve a desired emotional end state, like security or freedom or peace of mind or relaxation or safety, we have to achieve a certain degree of material wealth. If I buy this car, then I will feel like I'm enough. If I have this much money in my account, I will feel safe. If I live in this neighborhood and have this address, then I will feel a sense of belonging. And so in the end, what we are hoping to do is to buy our way into a desired emotional state. And that is the place where we will find happiness. The problem is one doesn't precede the other. In fact, the two are completely disconnected. I cannot tell you how many people I have coached who are multimillionaires and even billionaires who are not happy people. So what was the big illusion we bought into? Money literally cannot buy happiness. It can buy you access to certain resources, but it cannot do the work for you. The work is achieving that emotional internal state of peace, of calm, of belonging, of abundance, of safety, of happiness within yourself, independent of your external environment, regardless of the car you drive, regardless of who your friends are, regardless of the house you live in. Because unless you can achieve that, you'll never enjoy the money if you get it in absence of that. And if you do manage to get the money, look, you'll never be able to buy the happiness the way you think you will. So what have you got to do? You've got to be able to unlock your inner potential to create the emotional state you want, and then magnetically attract the wealth without relying on it to do the work for you. So we can't get lazy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I remember, that unlocked a lot. That realization unlocked a lot for me. But I remember when I first had that epiphany of the, like, in a summary, like, if you're not happy right now, you're not going to be happy then. But the other side of that is, if you can learn to control your inner state, the external doesn't matter as much, but then it usually ends up being a delayed mirror of what's going on internally. And that has been so true in my life. And I've been on both ends of that. I mean, my audience knows that I've had my years of chasing, and then, at one point it switched around, and now I attract that to me because my internal state is so dialed in. And it almost gets me to question, like, what, does the external world even matter if you really got, a good handle of your internal state? But I love that you and I are both thinking the same thing today.
Yeah, it's huge. And Simon, what I talked about today actually in my Wall Street Edge Facebook group, and that's a community where I'm actually teaching people all about the psychology behind trading and creating breakthroughs in your mindset to achieve wealth. We actually talked today about a concept called building your wealth identity.
Ooh,
And there I actually
yes.
introduced something that I think most people are under the assumption that first you get wealthy, then you figure out how you got there, and then you reverse engineer it and you keep doing it. The problem is most people, if they don't make these changes, will never get to a state of wealth. You'll always sabotage yourself on the journey if you don't change your limiting beliefs to enabling beliefs. If you don't control your environment mentally, emotionally, physically, you'll never be able to achieve your full potential. And what's interesting is I think these 5 steps, and I'm happy to chat with you a little bit about them, to building your wealth identity are huge breakthroughs that you can do no matter what your starting point is, no matter what your income is.
Absolutely. Let's start with how do you define a wealth identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a wealth identity is essentially the way that you show up in the world, the vibrational frequency that you come in with that resonates with the level of wealth you ultimately desire. So it's totally on the basis of energy work and frequency. And the best way to build a wealth identity is to basically calibrate deliberately your energetic frequency to match the level of wealth you want. So some people ask, easier said than done. That's like a great soundbite, but how do I do it? Well, here are the 5 steps that I essentially taught today. The first is I want you to almost visually, if you're a visual person, I want you to create in your mind an avatar, a future version of you that has the level of wealth you ultimately desire. And I want you to get aggressive and set a number. Set a number that scares you a little bit. What would your number be, Simon? Throw a number out there.
Gosh, that's so tough for me because it's like, feel like I've already won, right? Like where my internal state is lately is just like, it doesn't even matter. Like the number does, but I know that probably doesn't relate to a lot of people. So let's just say, 10 million in completely passive income per year.
Perfect. I love that. I want you to, even now in real time, we can do this. Imagine what would the core values of this individual be? If you right now here today had 10 million in passive income, what would be the core values that future version of you embodies? Is it honesty, dedication, integrity, showing up as your best self, giving to others? When you're no longer operating from a state of scarcity, of survival, of trying to hustle to get that passive income, when you have made it, what is your best and highest self telling you your values are? And you kind of got to sit there and almost imagine yourself with all of that money, and you'll start to notice a change in your body. Do you notice that? 10 million in passive income. Like,
yeah, that's a good reminder. Because like at one point I had a similar drill, like where you start giving more than you're comfortable with, like because you have to act, you have to embody like somebody who's playing on a bigger field. And so maybe for me, that's to lean into that even more. I mean, it was true. It totally unlocked a whole different version of me. But the thing is we can always expand higher on that. And like giving is such a great way to tap into abundance because it really lets you realize you're unlimited. Like you can always create more.
huge,
So
absolutely.
that's like, what is a person with 10 million passive income? What is the giving like on that level, right? And how do I think like that? How do I actually do that?
100%. And when you notice when you've completed step 1 and you know what your core values are, the second one's really easy to achieve. Step 2 would just be, what is the emotional state this person walks around with every day? Is it joy? Is it relaxation? Is it generosity? Is it happiness? And you kind of almost want to step into that emotional state. Like, where are the emotions? Like it's your favorite jacket. Is it a state of security, like confidence? I got 10 million in passive income. I feel pretty confident about myself. I no longer need to chase other people's approval. I no longer need to get attention. I no longer need to be envious or greedy or, small-minded about small conflicts that occur. I can let things go more easily because I feel relaxed. So what's the emotional state that you need to embody? That would be step 2, and really wear that in your visualization. Step 3 would be, what obstacles has this person overcome? So
That's a good one.
yeah,
Oh, I love that one.
your current wealth identity tells you, I'm still afraid of failing. I'm still afraid that I'm not good enough. I'm still afraid that I don't have what it takes to make money. Once you've made 10 million in passive income though, Simon, let me ask you, are you afraid of those things anymore?
I don't
No.
know. It's like I know a lot of wealthy people feared losing it. You know what I mean? They fear like it being taken away. So I don't know. That's a really good one. I've never thought about like the obstacles, at least not on the level that you're talking about. And that's something that's going to be a fun exercise for me.
Well, I'll tell you
Well,
what.
and you probably have people like chasing you, and like here's what I have heard of is a lot of people who are ultra wealthy. They've told me personally that they feel like people or friends are trying to create relationships with them because of their money, and they're not sure of their identity. They're not sure if it's because they, sincerely want to get to know them or if it's because of their money.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because what I would say is that they've probably overcome a series of obstacles to get from their initial starting point to where they are now. Overcoming those fears are the key to getting from where they currently are to that next level. And if you're always worried, money means I can't trust people, if that's the limiting belief they've internalized, good luck. Then you really will manifest not being able to hold on to your money, because there is some subconscious limiting belief that's telling you, if I have this money, I will never have real friends. So of course, your subconscious, which is designed to help you survive, is saying, oh, if we can't guarantee safety through honest relationships, and that's a safety need, a basic primal need we have as human beings, I'm going to sabotage your wealth. Because by getting rid of it, I can ensure that you have authentic, healthy relationships. So watch those friends. Tell them to give me a call, because those friends are going to need to work on this.
Right. Because it's almost like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You find a way to, I geek out on this stuff, because it's like your subconscious will eject wealth from you if it fears that you're going to lose that, your social standing, right? Your status, like your tribe, so to speak. If that's your limiting belief, then you'll find a way, whether you realize it or not, to sabotage that wealth.
100%.
That's
and
huge.
So
Really, this is such a great nugget right there.
I'm so glad. And this is literally for this month, the month of March, I'm in my Wall Street Edge Facebook group live every single day, dropping this gold. And so this is just a small snippet of it. But yeah, the last two ones are, what is that avatar when you visualize this person who's got their core values in alignment, embodies the right emotions, has overcome all these obstacles? What does it feel like in your body when you step into that avatar? Does your posture change? Does your facial expression change? Does your jaw relax? Do you kind of breathe differently? Instead of tight and from the shoulders and the upper chest, are you breathing through your stomach? Do you walk differently, like with a spring in your step? And here's the last one, and I know you're going to love it. Number 5 to building your wealth identity is, what do you wish for others in that state? Because we as energetic beings are connected to each other. So if in a state of scarcity, we don't want that person to succeed, or we don't want that person to win. But in our state of abundance and wealth, we can wish you well. I can wish you as much success as I've had. I hope you are healthy. I hope that you find all the love and the opportunities in the world that you want. Because what shifts when you are feeling abundant is you wish for others the best of what you got to experience, or you are experiencing it at present. And it all comes back full circle in a karmic loop. So by wishing well on others, you get it back.
Right. And that's how it should be. The crazy thing about abundance is, like, I would argue that there's nothing out there that takes away from you. Whether it's compliments or giving somebody like money or time. Like, I have a hard time believing that but we're wired to think like that. So I love this last one, because it's like, when you start wishing well for, like, you don't need to do that then, you can do that right now. And that helps you actually get more of what you want.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. It's all, in the end, I think that we as human beings are here to grow and to evolve as souls, and to help guide and support each other on the journey home, whatever that is, whether it's, the next reincarnation, if you believe in that, or our ultimate journey in life to, a blissful hereafter. We are not here to maximize our own comfort and pleasure in this limited lifetime. We are here to give back and to create collective abundance and collective wealth. And I think if you can treat the wealth building journey as a spiritual one, you've locked into like the code, like the secret code that my millionaires and billionaires that I work with on Wall Street have tapped into. And this is where their endless supply of energy and passion and motivation and excitement come from, because they're not just doing it for them. It's not just ego driven. It is a spiritual form of self-actualization to build wealth.
Right. I would completely agree with that. It's so interesting, because it's a very scarcity mindset to even like think of money as being a bad thing, or like money is evil, because the reality is there's a lot of people who are very, very wealthy giving the vast majority of their wealth away. Like, I always like to talk about the giving pledge, which surprisingly, you never hear about this on the news. You always hear the doom and gloom, but there's actually the giving pledge, where there's hundreds of people on this list, if not thousands, who have pledged to give away most of their wealth away. And they, like you said, they're doing it to make a contribution. But we get wired to think that, like, rich people are greedy or rich people are evil, which in my opinion, and what I've seen, at least what I'm tuning into, that is not the case. If you have a question, I love those 5 steps. They're very very intentional, and they really help you step in. And I love it. They do good in the world too. It's like, and people, I used to have this myself, have this like discomfort with saying, I want to make fuckloads of money because I'm going to help. Like I'd always say, I'm going to help other people. I don't need to say that. I can do it just because I want to. I don't need to say that to declare that I'm not evil because I want to make more money. There's nothing wrong with making more money. That's another thing that's separate, aside from happiness. But like, you're not good or evil if you want money. Like,
Yeah.
greedy people can be poor as shit too, right? so
100%.
I love poking holes in those limiting beliefs, but I want to circle back on one thing that you said, because this is where I was at some point. I want to talk about number 2. Okay, so what is the emotional state of somebody who is that 10x of where you are now? I feel like I figured that out, but I remember there was a time in my life where like I always would work on this. Like, what is the future me like? And how do I embody that? But I would get stuck because I'd be like, well, I don't know, because I'm not that person yet. It's weird because I feel it now, but I remember at some point I got stuck, and I would always try to visualize the future version of me that I wanted, but I didn't know how that person was thinking or feeling. How would you advise people to understand what that is? Like, if you haven't been there, how do you feel it? How do you know it?
So what's so interesting is most people assume that when they hit their ideal number, so if it's 1 million or 10 million or 100 million or a billion, that there will be this elation, this incredible excitement and exuberance, this high intensity positive emotion. But here's the actual secret behind it. It's more calm and balanced than you can initially imagine. It's not the moment you win the lottery. It's what it looks like and gets normalized as to win the lottery every day. It's actually, if you kind of study the way of the Tao talks about how each of us begins in life with an internal balance, an energetic balance between up and down, high and low, black and white. We have a balance inside of us. And to return to that state of calm and balance is our most natural, most aligned state. What happens is that stimuli or triggers in our environment will cause us to react and pendulum swing toward the negative or the dense energetic forms, or we'll get really excited and happy and jubilant and we'll swing the other way to like the ultra light forms. But really, both are triggers that are causing a deviation away from balance. And the only thing we have to do, according to the way of the Tao, is to simply allow both what we have labeled as negative or positive, high intensity or low intensity, dark or light experiences to be released from our body and to return to the middle, the state of ultimate balance. So if you ask me, what does a multimillionaire or billionaire look and feel like on a day-to-day basis? It's actually very still and very calm and very centered and grounded. It's alignment so that they don't have to overthink, who do I have to show up as or who do I have to be? They simply are. And in that state of embodiment, they are abundance and they are wealth and they are happiness and they are fulfillment. But it's not an overly excited state and it's not a super volatile experience. It's actually very still and it is the embodiment of peace of mind. That's what it is.
I love that you said that, because I remember when I was younger, I always thought like when I hit 1 million, it's going to be like this huge celebration and like going to do all this, go on a trip. And like when that actually happened, I remember I was like scrolling on my phone and I was like playing with a calculator and some of my investments and stuff and just calculating. And I was like, I was like, hey, honey, guess what? But it wasn't like this. And she didn't even sound excited or anything. It was just there 1 minute. And I think like these things just build up over years, right? It's not like all of a sudden it's there. It just like manifests, and it's not this huge moment or this huge hurrah. And it's not like, and you don't feel like, oh, okay, now everything's just going to be like, I've just made it, right? It's that continual journey. And that's what I love about it.
It's so beautiful. Simon, you hit the nail on the head here. If you are hoping that one moment is going to define or justify years of misery, you're absolutely wrong. You have to love the process by which you build wealth as much as the rewards that come from that process. You can't wait for $1 million paycheck to slide across the table and say, oh, all those years of misery at the law firm or at the hedge fund, now it's justified. If you aren't happy along the way, first of all, you'll never hit the $1 million mark or the 10 or the 100 million. But second of all, when you get there, it won't be the moment you think it is. it won't bring or justify or make up for years of unhappiness you put yourself through. So you've got to find a process of building wealth that allows you to be at your best. Because once you hit that number, it's not the number itself that brings you happiness. It's who you've been along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That
love
brings
that.
you happiness. So it's such a huge mindset shift that once you make it, unlocks the key to everything.
That's awesome. I want to ask you about this. I've talked about this on the show before, but let's talk about money blocks for a minute, because holy shit, this is powerful. And you kind of talked about them a little bit, right? These things that come up at, earlier in life that they caught, like you were talking about how like we can avoid stuff because of a certain belief, right? That like, my friends are going to take away, they're only going to want to be around me because I have money. Like, what other limiting beliefs do you come across when it comes to mindset? I have like several in my head, which feel to me like they're pretty common, but I want to hear from you. Like, what are some of the more interesting money blocks or limiting beliefs around money that would be similar to what you just brought up about like friends wanting your money?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Money is a responsibility that I'm not ready for. I've never been able to manage it. I don't know what to do with it. People are genuinely afraid of having that much money in their hands. They don't know how to handle it. I think some of them, and here's what they're actually saying when they're afraid of that. It's, I have a number of vices that haven't run amok. So whether it's drinking or like partying, because I haven't had the funds to do it. But if I did, it's going to require a higher level of discipline from me not to engage in certain destructive habits. So whether it's throwing it away on parties or on clothes or on reckless spending or on, substances, if you don't have that stuff in check, if you don't know how to manage money and build healthy money management habits, of course, having a lot more of it is scary, because all it does, money as a form of energy, will simply amplify what is inside of you. So if you haven't cleaned this up, simply supercharging or turbocharging somebody who's in misalignment is actually going to lead to some pretty heavy destruction. And you don't want to have to learn that lesson at the $1 million level. You better learn it at the $1,000, $100 level and then get it right. So I think there's a deep sense of internal mistrust that some people have because they know they haven't done their internal work yet.
Ooh,
and that's a lot of what I do.
What about this one? So I've seen people that have had like a traumatic event in life that had nothing necessarily to do with money, but there's some connections that are made to money. And like, I've seen people who are like extremely talented at, relationships that could, crush it in sales, slinging deals or whatever, but they have such a hard time creating money because at some level there's, like a traumatic experience in life that somehow they've connected to money. Have you seen stuff like that before? And
Yeah,
if you have, tell me a little bit about it.
The one I relate to most is I have some clients, actually a fair number of them, specifically in the corporate world, who fear that if they have enough, they'll get lazy. That money is like food. It kept them hungry. Not having enough or chasing it is what allowed them to stay sharp. So they're worried that if they somehow make it, they're going to lose their edge. They won't feel the need to work as hard as they do, and they'll lose that competitive edge they have at being sharp and quick and driven and hungry. And all of this says to me is that they've never been intrinsically motivated by what they do, and they've only ever done it because there's some carrot being dangled in front of them. That will always lead to poverty. If you are waiting for things outside of you to justify how you behave, if you are waiting for someone's gold star or approval or pat on the back or a paycheck or a bonus before you feel like you're good enough, of course you'll need a carrot. You've conditioned yourself to always need a carrot to perform. What if you could motivate yourself from an engine or a driver of passion inside of you? Then you'd be unstoppable, because it's those people who, even when people criticize you, even when you're not being paid, even when you are alone in an auditorium and there's only one person who showed up to your lecture, you deliver it with so much passion. Those are the people who succeed in good and bad times. Once you rely on the carrot, unless they have an audience, unless they have an inbuilt system of rewards from outside of them, they'll always fail in hard times. So it's a short-lived, a short-term way to succeed. So what I would say to those people is, look, you've got to find a way to intrinsically motivate yourself. You can't just rely on something like money. And of course, that's why you have a limiting belief. If I have too much of it, I'll get lazy. Like, well, then stay poor. That's fine. We all need workhorses at law firms or elsewhere.
Right. It always comes back to scarcity. Everything always comes back to that scarcity. I'm afraid of, or a form of not being enough, right?
Yep, totally.
Okay. I love that. I want to ask you about what goes on in the mind of traders, because I always use this as kind of a example of, it's actually a trading example, but I feel like our decisions, like if we make a decision and it's a decision based out of fear versus a decision made out of a powerful place or a choice, that you're going to have two completely different actions, therefore two completely different results. And I always think about the Great Recession and maybe even the recessions before that. And luckily I got my ass kicked pretty early on when I was, I was part of the dot-com bubble, and whoa, did I learn a lot and lose a lot of money. That was really good for me. And then the Great Recession, like I made it through that fine because of the lessons that I learned before, but I didn't capitalize on it. So it was more neutral. But one thing I noticed about the Great Recession is people like Warren Buffett, they had their emotions in check and they were able to load up. They were like, okay, everything's on sale. This is the best time to buy. Whereas somebody that is not sophisticated and does not have the mindset that you teach, they're panicking. They're seeing their portfolio go down daily, like 5, 10, 15% a day. And so they panic and then they sell. And, so the fear creates the choice, the decision to sell. The action is to sell. And the results is they've just like cut themselves off from the rebound and they missed out on potential generational wealth. Whereas somebody who had their emotions in check was able to capitalize on that. So with these high performing, high pressure traders, tell me a little bit more about what goes on in their mind and how you help them.
Yeah, great question. Fear is a huge determinant. Your ability to manage and to handle fear is a huge, huge determinant of whether or not you'll succeed long-term. Look, I actually think it's a misnomer to say that fear has no place in trading. I think a lot of people say detach completely from your emotions. Well, the truth of it is we're not robots. We are human beings, and emotions are a natural feedback loop. Emotions, in fact, are the language of the subconscious. We need that form of information to let us know at times when we are in danger or when we need to sharpen up our focus because we may be in an environment of uncertainty. So fear is actually a wonderful signal if we know how to use it. What I try and teach people, and I'll use my hands here to kind of show you what I mean, but I'll try and describe it verbally as well. If somebody is too understimulated during an important decision-making moment, they don't actually have sufficient focus, blood flow, oxygenation, or attention on the problem that needs to be solved or on the decision that needs to be made. Like if you've got a student and they're supposed to be writing an exam and they're staring at the ceiling because they're bored, that exam is not going to go well. We've been there. That's called understimulation.
Good point.
Overstimulation is what occurs when we are too heightened in our emotional state. So our heart's racing a little too fast, our pupils are a little too dilated, our palms are getting sweaty. We actually move out of the ability to make a clear decision. We are now in panic. So this is when the emotional charge is too high. It's exceeded the threshold. But there is a range between the baseline and the ceiling, this optimal range where we have sufficient alertness, sufficient adrenaline running through us, sufficient quote unquote fear to actually sharpen our focus and dial in, where we can actually enter that hyper state of focus called alpha. If you can enter alpha mode, which is your ability to tune out everything that is distracting you and focus on making a clear decision now, you can actually hit trade after trade after trade bang on. So the question is, how do you modulate fear, not get rid of it? How do you keep it within this critical range for you to enter alpha mode? Well, the answer is threefold. If you are exceeding the threshold, learn to deep breathe in the moment to bring yourself back within the baseline or back within the normal parameters, number one. Number two, have a trade plan in front of you. If you can focus on the trade plan with enough alertness and attention, you can use the fear to sharpen your attention and to guide you along with following the trade plan even better than if you were just in a complacent, relaxed mode. And number three, and here's the real kicker, you actually have to enjoy the experience of fear. There is not a single person who has skin in the game at any point in their life, whether you're asking someone out, going to a job interview, stepping on the scale after a major fitness program you've completed. When you have skin in the game, fear will show up, but that's a good thing. It's telling you that you are stepping into the world of the unknown. You're in a place that's a little uncertain, a little uncomfortable, but it's actually the place that the most resilient traders will go to by themselves to learn. I want to step out. I want to freak myself out a little bit here, because when I'm in the unknown, when I'm outside my comfort zone, I have an opportunity to learn, to build new skills, and to expand my zone of comfort so that I can take on the whole goddamn world, not stay in a small bubble. So if you learn to develop a healthy relationship with fear and see it as a signal that you are in a learning state, you are in a state of uncertainty where you can get new information on how to adapt and how to be more resilient, that's where my killer instincts lie. That's where my sharks are. That's where my killer traders lie.
I love it. You and I, it's so interesting. We haven't talked in a year, but like the things we think about are so similar and so on point. I always think like when you're stuck, like whatever you fear most, that's exactly where you need to go, because there's a lesson in there. That's awesome. A couple more questions about this, and then we'll have you tell us what's going on as far as your training, your Facebook group, and your mastermind. How does like technology play into all this? Like, so it's been years since I've been in, like I still invest, but it's been quite a while since I've been doing trading. And I know that there's a high level of sophistication and, you know, trades that are done on just like fractions and fractions of a cent. So like, how does that all play in, and how's that integrated with emotions and like mindset and psychology?
Yeah, I think, look, if you're an advanced trader who's using algorithms to try and like game the markets, and you're able to program certain patterns in that, if it picks up on that pattern showing up in the markets, it's going to, you know, trigger a trade. That's all well and good, but I have two things to say. One, a lot of the people that I work with are day traders or pattern traders, who are just, you know, the regular people like you and me who want to get in the market. They don't necessarily have millions to invest. They don't have their own proprietary algorithm, but they do want a piece of the pie. And so they want to learn beyond just what you can read in a book about market fundamentals or technicals. They want to learn how to trade FX or crypto or, you know, stocks. And this is an important learning lesson for them to go through. But even if you are somebody who's in a position to trade millions or to use algorithms or, you know, to buy proprietary software and use it to your advantage, remember, those algorithms are still made by human beings. And those human beings still have to understand risk calculations. And if those human beings have programmed or coded an algorithm in such a way that they are risk averse or they aren't leaning in the right ways, you're better off learning how to sharpen those skills yourself. And what I will add to that is what I teach doesn't just have an impact on how you trade. I mean, the Wall Street Edge, which is the Facebook group that I have that anyone can join, it's actually where trading psychology meets personal development. If you're somebody who can learn to overcome fear in the markets, can you imagine what that will do to other areas of your life where you're shying away from fear? What if you built the muscle to take on personal relationships and go into scary places and deal with them better? What if you could go into your work or into your fitness regime and counteract fear by learning how to manage it? You don't just become a better trader with me, you become a better person, or a better version of yourself.
I love that, because I do feel like there's a lot of parallels with money and with life. They're intertwined. And like you said, money is energy. That was a hard thing for me to wrap my head around when I was younger, but now I'm like, yes, 1000% money is energy. Same with time, and same with love, and same with giving. They're all forms of energy. And it's actually really beautiful. You can learn so much. And kind of the cool thing too about trading is there's a competitive nature to it too. And I do believe that you learn so much from money and from certain types of competition. You can also let ego get in the way too. But I do believe that there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from money and from training and from your content. I'm so excited to hear about. Let's dive into that. Tell me about your Facebook group. Let's send people to that group or to your mastermind.
100%. So on March 20th, 2023, that's a Monday, for about 4 hours, and I'll be announcing it on my Facebook page and in the group, The Wall Street Edge. I'm going to be doing a one-day mastermind specifically on how to create your next breakthrough using trading psychology techniques, but also a combination of personal development as well. So if you liked what you heard today about the wealth identity or overcoming fear and uncertainty, it's going to be a day jam-packed with that type of content. And of course, if you want more of that, I absolutely encourage you to join the Wall Street Edge Facebook group online. It's free, and it's chock full of a community of wonderful people who are on the same journey to developing themselves and their trading acumen, using breakthrough psychological tools, trainings, and techniques. And of course, if you'd like to learn even more, I'm doing a 12-week, so 3-month group coaching program called the Wall Street Edge. So that's beyond just what you get as the free content in the Facebook group. And if you sign up before the end of March, you'll actually get a free breakthrough one-to-one private training session with me as well. So just tune into the group, check it out, go to my various social media links, which Simon, I know you'll provide them with, and you'll get to learn a lot more about all this.
Ooh, that's so exciting. So this is great because you've given people a framework. You've got some homework ahead of you guys. Mindset Hackers, I want to remind you of what she talked about as far as creating your step number 1 is creating your visual avatar. Step number 2 is stepping into the emotional state of that future version of yourself to find out what obstacles that person has gone through. Start to really feel in, like, what does that avatar feel like? And then also think about, like, when you're in that state, what do you wish for other people? So make sure you pull out a notepad and jot down some notes in those 5 areas and see what comes alive for you. Mindset Hackers, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Hana, it's so good to have you back. We need to do this more. I would challenge you, please send this episode to somebody that you know that can use this message. And please drop some, if you're on Apple or iTunes, please pull up your phone right now, send it to somebody else, but also drop some stars on this podcast. You are helping me grow, and I appreciate you taking the time to show up for yourself. I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks.